I'm a teen mom. I'm a part-time student and a full-time employee, and I run my own business from home. My name is Bethany, and I'm a miraculous mama.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Miraculous Mamas podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth Joy, and we believe in empowering women through storytelling and education. And today we have a very educational episode all about hormones. I'm super excited. You guys know I love to talk about hormone health. Absolutely love it. And we have an expert on today, Candace Burch, and she's internationally recognized as a hormone health educator and media personality with over 25 years of experience in the field. We have such an amazing conversation. I feel like my body's kind of, it's different postpartum. Obviously, your body goes through a lot of changes. I feel like since I got my period back, I've had two, that my body kind of feels like it's leveled out. I don't feel like my hormones are all over the place, but that doesn't mean that I still don't have mood swings and bad days and get cranky and grumpy, because motherhood is amazing. And it's also exhausting and can be draining emotionally, physically, and mentally, so there's obviously still days that I'm like, wow, I'm way over here today because I'm tired. But I don't think that it's my hormones. I think it's just, lack of sleep, things like that. But I'm super excited to talk with her. If you missed last week's episode, we talked all about milk, and not breast milk for once, actual milk. We talked about dairy milk, milk alternatives, things to look out for, things to, what you should look for in a milk that you're going to buy and feed your family with, give to your kids. So it's a very informational episode. Also, my birthday was yesterday, guys. I'm 34 years old. So I don't know why I just said so. I don't know what comes with that. I'm 34, feeling great, feeling fabulous. I would love to just say also, women who are 35 and older, who are in that category for having kids. Some people call it a geriatric pregnancy, which is not a good term for it, or like advanced maternal age. And I would encourage you, if you're in that category, to listen to the Evidence-Based Birth podcast episode on that. They have tons of amazing information on there, but the number 35 is not like a cutoff point. It's not like, 35 and cut off, and now fertility is more challenging, and you're going to have a high risk pregnancy. Like, the fact that 35 and older women are automatically considered high risk with some practices is just not evidence based at all. So if you are 35 and older and having especially your first kid, or just still having children, just Google evidence-based birth 35 and older, and you'll find tons of information on there, and it'll help you choose providers that are right for you, that aren't necessarily going to just treat you high risk because you're 35 and older, and that will try to support what birth you want to have. I will be 35 when I have my next kid. Well, probably, who knows? I'll be 35 or older when I have my next kid. So it's just important to make sure that you are educated on that, so that you know your options, and so you can make informed decisions when it comes to finding providers and all of that great information. So you guys can tell I'm really passionate about all of that, especially just when it comes to evidence-based birth. There's a lot of practices that don't practice evidence-based. There's so many outdated terms and outdated practices, like even being forced to labor on your back, is really crazy. If you actually look into it, it came from like King Louis XIV, who had a weird fetish of watching his babies being born. And before then, women would give birth on birthing stools, which is a much better position. And he wanted to watch them being born, not in like a cool, yeah, I'm your dad way, but like in a creepy way. And so he ordered the doctors to lay the women back and put their feet up in stirrups so that he could see everything. That's where that practice began, not based on any evidence, not based on anything, but from there, it became a way that they trained doctors to practice in. So most doctors are trained to deliver babies in that position and to do everything like that. So that you should not be forced to labor on your back. There's some, depending on like some medical conditions and different things that can happen, or even if you have an epidural, like you should be able to push on your side and have some options when it comes to that as well. I've been at births with epidurals where they use the squat bar, where they were on all fours, all sorts of stuff. So that's another thing just to look into if you're making a birth plan, the practice that you're with. I actually went to the gynecologist here that Vito's whole family goes to. And it was right before we got married, and I told him, I'm like, hey, I'm getting married. We want to start family planning, although we don't want to start trying for like a year. So I was asking about practices, and I said, do you have to give birth on your back? And he said, yes. And I was like, okay, I won't be birthing here, just because there's no evidence that supports giving birth on your back. If there's certain, like I said, situations in which that might be a good position, or if that's a position that you feel that your body needs to be in to give birth, then that's a whole other story. When it comes to maybe a doctor trying to get out a baby with a shoulder dystocia or something like that, where they're like, hey, I need to like get in here and this is like the best angle, then yeah. But it's just also something to ask your providers about, look into it, put it on your birth plan, look at the statistics of where you're birthing, because if we don't start demanding change for ourselves, nothing's going to change. Got off on a little birthing tangent there, but I'm so excited to talk to Candace today again about hormone health, balancing your hormones, and she's just, oh my gosh, she's so much fun. I wish that she lived here. I feel like we would be friends and get coffee, but we had a virtual date and recorded the podcast, and I'm super excited for you to hear this episode. All right, everyone, I have Candace Burch here, and I'm so excited to talk to her because we are talking about hormones, which is something that's on my mind a lot, being that I had a baby 4 months ago and I did hormone testing before I got pregnant. And now I'm so curious about where my body's at, but I don't know, like, since I'm breastfeeding, do I need to wait to figure out where it's at? Like, how do I balance my body back? I am clueless about all of it, but you guys know I'm really, really passionate about balancing hormones because it affects our entire bodies. So Candace is here to talk to us about it. She is a hormone balancing expert. So I'm so excited that she's taking the time to be with us. Thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
I'd love for you to tell us like who you are and what you do and how did you get to being the hormone balancing lady?
Oh, well, I hope I'm one of many, but long story short, I am a health educator, and I have been for many years. After skiing in Colorado for way too long and having too much fun, I kind of hurt my knees and was told I needed to be on anti-inflammatories and all this, was getting cortisone shot into my knees. And I just had this revelation one morning and thought, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going on a juice fast and I'm going to learn whatever I need to learn to get well naturally. And so that got me interested. I was living in Aspen, Colorado at the time, and I actually started a group called AHA, the Aspen Holistic Health Association, because all these cool people would come through Aspen. So we had great, sort of meetings and lectures about health. And this was in the 70s. So people were just becoming very aware of integrative medicine and functional health. And then fast forward, lived in England a long time, had children late. I was a late mom. I'm one of those that was on birth control in the 60s and then waited to have kids till I was 37. I had my first one, and 41 when I had my second daughter, Ryan. So Jess and Ryan were the children of a menopausal mom, because I went into menopause or perimenopause when your hormones start bouncing off the walls, right about the time when Ryan was, I think she was 3 and Jess was about 5. And, I tell this story often, but one day I looked at Ryan and she had tears just standing in her eyes because mean mommy was at it again. I was having a hot flash and a mood minutes, not an exaggeration. So I thought, okay, Candace, time to get a grip. This is your hormones talking. And that's when I started reaching out to experts in the field, like Dr. John Lee, who wrote a very important book, What Your Doctor May Not Tell You About Premenopause, and also one about menopause, and thought, I've got to figure out if I have, at that time, I didn't even know there was such a thing as a hormone imbalance. So I found, I started reading and I was crying, thinking, oh my God, they're talking to me. And all the symptoms of imbalance. And I just decided to specialize. And luckily, I decided to pivot my health education career into concentrating on hormonal changes and what it does to us at all ages. It's not just about menopause. So, and I needed to become a more sane mommy for my children. That was my major impetus. But in the process, I ended up working, getting a job as director of education at one of the biggest hormone testing labs in the country, which was run by a biochemist. It's still there, ZRT Laboratory. I now use another lab for testing that is analogous to them. But in that world of hormone testing, I was able to see thousands of test results, learn from biochemists and functional medicine doctors as we all moved into natural, the use of rebalancing with natural hormones, herbs, and supplements. So there's a lot of ways to go. But now it's just become me talking to people about their test results and saying, yeah, no wonder you feel the way you do. Look at your hormone levels. Mm-hmm. No wonder you've been having these symptoms and have been fighting them chronically for years. This is an imbalance, and people are usually very relieved to find out there's a reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and probably something that they can do to correct it.
Right. And when I was at ZRT as an executive, I realized I am tired of being in meetings. I want to talk to women about what's going on because so many women don't understand what hormones do. And that's when I started Your Hormone Balance, which is where I do my private consulting and also where we provide kits, test kits and consulting and a lot of education as well on Instagram. And the whole idea is let's learn together and find out how we can, have more familiarity around our hormones and how we can feel more like ourselves and keep them in balance. We didn't really learn this in sex ed. They didn't teach us this.
Yeah. We're going to take a break from this episode to talk about something. So we've all been told the lie by the weight loss industry that weight equals health. And the number on the scale has become so powerful that it defines how people feel and think about themselves. But that's not an accurate reflection of true health. And that's why we love using FitTrack's Dara Smart Scale. The Smart Scale is one of the most accurate home smart scales in the world that measures 17 different body compositions, which gives you a more accurate picture of your health. You can step on the scale with the 4 metal pads that will analyze 17 different health measurements, including your body fat, muscle mass, hydration levels, bone density, and more. The best part is that you can easily track and trend your overall health and see how your daily choices, ranging from exercise to food, can affect your health in the bigger picture. The FitTrack Star Smart Scale is a really great tool to keep you accountable. If you're on any fitness program, it's definitely great to track your progress or body changes. The scale's results are incredibly accurate and they're used by nutritionists and fitness trainers across the world. It's the best tool to keep me motivated, like having a little personal coach. It's great for families. It can recognize up to 8 different accounts, and it even has an infant mode that lets parents track their baby's weight. If you're like me, I've definitely had times where I'm like paranoid, like, is Jovi gaining weight or not? So I've used my FitTrack scale to weigh her to make sure that she's gaining weight. The Smart Scale syncs with the free FitTrack app and can save all of your health insights in one place. Stop measuring weight and start measuring health with FitTrack. Go to fittrack.com/miraculous to take 50% off your order. Plus, for a limited time, you'll also save an additional 30% with the code BUILD30 at the checkout. That's fittrack.com/miraculous to save 50% plus an additional 30% off your order with code BUILD30 at the checkout. Don't miss out on this amazing limited time offer. Fittrack.com/miraculous with code BUILD30 at the checkout. You know, when you're saying that people may not know why they're feeling this way, but we weren't taught at all, you know, that things could even be affecting our hormones. Like, what are the things that you see that are affecting women's hormones and causing them to feel so horrible?
Well, you know, since my daughters both jumped into helping me with Your Hormone Balance, and Ryan's our co-founder and Jesse is our nutritional health coach, and both of them being younger started reaching out to a younger audience. And that's when I really realized, because I'd done so much work with menopausal women, and I started realizing how many younger women have symptoms of imbalance that, you know, you look at their test results and it looks like they're in menopause. Mm-hmm. So often I'd say the first contributor to that is long-term birth control. And, you know, I've had to take a stand on that and be brave because, as I mentioned, I was one of the first in line to get birth control. So I wanted to live with my boyfriend. I didn't want to get pregnant. I'm totally in sympathy with that. But when I look at test results of people who've been on birth control for 5 years, 10 years, and they're telling me that they have headaches and mood swings and they can't lose weight or they have acne. Many people were put on birth control for symptoms that are actually hormonal imbalances or mm-hmm. signs of hormone imbalance. And many women I talk to now are saying, I don't really want to be on this because I'm not even using it for contraception. A lot of women are on birth control, 52% or so are using birth control because they had acne or heavy periods, not because they need it for contraception. So what is it doing? It's shutting down ovarian hormone production. And then we get to a place where you've met the partner of your life, you want to have a child, and now you can't get your period back or get pregnant. This can be a real problem for women that have been on birth control. So there's that. And then there's, you know, different things that the conversation really has to get into. What disrupts ovulation? And, you know, if you don't ovulate, then you don't produce the right complement of hormones. And that's where symptoms set in. And it's really looking at what's going on with ovulation. Ovulation requires, you know, good fats and proteins in your diet. It requires that you don't over-exercise like a crazy person. You know, some people are way over-exercising to lose weight, and that can disrupt ovulation. We know that Olympic athletes are famous for having anovulatory cycles. You know, you can have a period and not ovulate. So there are many reasons. Exposure to xenoestrogens, which are chemicals in the environment that act like hormones in our body. They're like imposters, and they get in there and displace normal hormones and take over. There are many reasons. Veganism, don't get mad at me, vegans, but some vegans are not combining proteins properly, and they're kind of going the carb route. You know, carbs becomes the default, and a lack of protein can become a problem since hormones are made of protein and
mm-hmm.
good fat. So those are some of the, you know, the simpler, sort of hallmark reasons why people fall into hormonal imbalances. Of course, aging, moving into your 40s when hormones are going to start to fluctuate, and we are going to get into menopause. It's all inevitable. But the point is, do we have to suffer all the way along? Do we have to suffer for 10 years with all kinds of symptoms? No, that's not necessary. So, the main thing is let's become aware of our symptoms and find out if those symptoms are actually heralding an existing hormone imbalance that we're walking around with that's sabotaging our best efforts to feel good, to lose weight, to remember things, to feel like we have a libido. You know, it's a big subject.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a huge subject. When you were saying that you kind of had to take a stance on birth control, I feel like the hard part about that is if you say that you're anti, hormonal contraceptive, a lot of people take that as then you're like almost anti-feminism, right? Like the right to choose that. But there
Right.
are some great other options, and some of those include getting to know your body a lot better and getting to know your cycle and learning your body to be able to track that.
Yes. There's some great options now.
Right. Yeah. They make it so much easier than it was years ago. But I do feel like that's where a lot of people struggle, because if you're having a really extreme, painful period and your doctor's not doing any hormonal testing, basically just saying, this is what we can do to fix it right now, you're going to want to take that option because you're not given a different one. And sometimes, going the other route, it's not a quick fix.
That's true. The only problem is that the quick fix, which is usually the birth control pill, that's the default, is just creating another hormone imbalance. I mean, it's just exacerbating hormonal imbalances that you already have. Symptoms can become even more abundant. And then it's so hard to get back on track. So, no, I mean, like I say, I was in that feminist movement. I'm of that age. If I tell you my girls are both in their 30s, you can figure out how old I am. I mean, I was a 60s kid. So I'm all for planning our family, for women's rights to, decide when and how they get pregnant. But now that we have better choices, why not discuss the fact that, there are non-hormonal options, not as many as I'd like to see, because, of course, there's the copper IUD, which can be an issue with the copper in it. It can create heavier periods, but some women get on fine with the copper IUD. It's one option. And, the sponge and the different barrier methods, of course, have always been there. But what I love now are these family planning apps, because some of them are very, very efficient and accurate. Natural Cycles comes to mind, and Flow Living. I don't know if you've interviewed Alyssa Vitti, who wrote Women Code.
She's on my list to interview, though.
Yeah, you want to talk to her about the cycle syncing. She's an expert on that. But, getting to know your body, as you were saying, knowing your, the follicular phase, the ovulatory phase, the luteal phase, the menstrual phase, what's going on in those phases. And that's just so important to understanding your body. But also using an app can identify those days when you're fertile, and you can just abstain if you are sexually active, and then we're not messing with our hormone levels, which is, I would think, infinitely superior. I talked to a woman yesterday who's in her early 40s. She is only like 42 years old. She has had already a hip fracture and is considered to have osteoporosis. And she's been, I think the reason is that she's been on birth control for 22 years without a break. So, there are those stories. And a lot of the women I talk to that have been on birth control for 5-10 years do have very low hormone levels and lots of symptoms.
Yeah. We have partnered with the March of Dimes for National Birth Defects Prevention Month. Their slogan this year is Best for You, Best for Baby, with the number 4. And you can follow them with that hashtag on any social media platforms. They believe in protecting yourself and making healthy choices is so important, and more now than ever for those who are trying to get pregnant in 2021. As we continue to face the COVID-19 pandemic, pregnant persons must take special care of themselves as they prepare for the baby. Right now, there's so much to learn. There's research that shows that pregnant people may have a slightly higher risk for severe illness or death from the COVID-19 compared with non-pregnant people. This new year, which begins with National Birth Defects Prevention Month in January and is followed by World Birth Defects Day on March 3rd, is the perfect time to learn about actions you can take to be healthy before and during pregnancy, because what's best for you is best for baby. Birth defects are structural changes that affect one or more parts of the body, and they develop most often during the first 3 months of pregnancy when a baby's organs are forming, and can cause problems in overall health and how the body develops and functions. But we do know that you can adopt certain behaviors to increase your chances of having a healthy full-term pregnancy and baby. Here's 6 tips to follow. Protect yourself against COVID-19. Stay safe and help prevent the spread by wearing a face mask and practicing social distancing. Be sure to take 400 micrograms of folic acid every single day and to eat foods that are rich in folate, like leafy green vegetables, black beans, lentils, and eat foods that have some fortified grain products, which have folic acid added, such as some breads, breakfast cereals, and foods made from fortified corn masa flour and tortillas. Get a pre-pregnancy checkup. See your healthcare provider to talk about managing your health conditions and creating a treatment plan before you get pregnant. Talk to them about any prescriptions or over-the-counter drugs that you are taking, and get a pre-pregnancy checkup to see even if you've already had a baby, your health can change since your last pregnancy. Stay up to date on vaccines, including the flu shot. Speak to your healthcare provider about the vaccines you need during each pregnancy to help protect yourself and your baby against serious diseases. Before you get pregnant, try to reach a healthy weight. Excess weight can affect your fertility, and during pregnancy, it can increase the risk of having a baby with a birth defect and other complications. Boost your health by avoiding substances that are harmful during pregnancy. There's no known safe amount of alcohol during pregnancy or when trying to get pregnant. Smoking causes cancer, heart disease, and other major issues, and it is also so harmful for the developing baby and can cause certain birth defects. Opioid use in pregnancy can lead to neonatal abstinence syndrome and premature birth and may cause birth defects. Join the conversation about National Birth Defect Prevention Month by following the hashtag #BestForYou, BestForBaby on social media, and by visiting the March of Dimes at marchofdimes.org or nassersano.org and the CDC at cdc.gov/birthdefects. March of Dimes, the leading nonprofit fighting for the health of all moms and babies, is observing National Birth Defects Prevention Month in January 2021. This is an annual event in which March of Dimes partners with the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention to generate awareness among women of childbearing age and families about actions that they can take to prevent birth defects. I would love to dive into, because you talk about how to rebalance your hormones postpartum. And I am postpartum. Like I said, I had my daughter a little over 4 months ago. And you know,
don't even look tired. Gosh.
I am.
She has a very radiant, awake face. Do you sleep?
Oh my gosh, no. You know what? Last night I did a little bit, but she's been going through that dreaded 4-month sleep regression, but it's been going like a month now of her just waking up so much. And actually last night at one point I was just laying in bed because she's in our room still. And, I was just laying in bed and she started crying, and usually I get up and, you know, get her, but it had been over an hour of me trying to put her down, trying to soothe her. And I was just like, I don't know what to do. So my husband's like pushing me like, hey, she's crying. I was like, I know. I'm like, it's been an hour. I don't know what, like, I'm done. And so like he got up and then she went right to sleep. He like soothed her back to sleep. I was like, what?
Okay, he's on duty tomorrow night.
I know.
Or tonight.
I know. So, but I mean, she's such a joy though. Like she just has the happiest personality. Like sleeping sucks, but like when she's up, she's like the happiest baby and just so much fun. So, it makes it worth it, but I'm hoping to start getting more sleep soon.
Yeah, I think, well, I just remember when I became a mom, I was so amazed that here I'd had to be pregnant for 9 months, give birth, which was not the greatest experience for me because I had an issue and had to be a forceps delivery. And when that woman came in with those forceps, it was like, oh my God, they should tell us what these look like.
Yeah.
I was terrified. And, you know, my Jessie had little marks on her forehead, which every time I'd look at made me cry. And it was just, and then you never have time to even go to the bathroom or, all this time. And then you're right into the breastfeeding and you're there for she who must be obeyed. Right. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I just can't even remember how I did this because it was well before I had knowledge. But I think with women who, when we give birth, it's a major, right before you do, that baby is swimming in a sea of hormones, these extraordinary high amounts of estrogen and particularly progesterone, which is that pregnancy hormone that keeps the baby asleep in the womb. And when you give birth, all of those hormones go out with the placenta. So, it's really, and of course, the lowering of those hormones is what triggers the production of prolactin, which is stimulating your milk production. So there's a trade-off there. But it's really, I think postpartum women we're so notorious for doing everything, for doing everything for everybody but ourselves. And especially when we have a new baby. When I had a new baby, I was in England, and they have such a humane social health system there, the National Health. For 10 days after I went home, a lovely Irish midwife came over to the house. Wow. And weighed the baby and checked with me to see if my milk was coming in and helped me with my diet and my rest and all of that. So, and we don't have that here, but it was so humane and so helpful. And I just remember she really encouraged me to, have tea in the morning, be eating lots of, and of course, goes for everyone. Once you've given birth, you've got to have extra super nutrition to try to build back that ovarian hormone, let the ovaries come back, feed your ovaries with good fats and proteins and lots of B vitamins, magnesium at bedtime to help you sleep. And once you've stopped breastfeeding, a lot of women are still so low in progesterone that they need a little top up with some, either chasteberry vitex, the herb, which helps the body promote naturally occurring progesterone, or sometimes women are so low in progesterone, they're having the worst postpartum symptoms, they may need a little progesterone. Mm-hmm. The cream itself, the bioidentical plant-based cream. But I think with women who've just given birth and in 4 months' time, you're, like you say, you're not sleeping. You're probably, what is your day like? I mean, I'm sure you're trying to get something done. I remember trying to get something done while breastfeeding. Mm-hmm. I would make phone calls or have my laptop balanced on one knee and be trying to feed the baby with the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's hard. Every day is different. Right now, for a while, she was taking a really good morning nap, and now she's not. So I put her down for her nap this morning. Usually we get up in the morning, play, hang out, kind of get a slow start to the morning because she's just like so happy. And, I'll lay her on the floor to play while I brush my teeth and try to get, at least I'm like, okay, I got that done for the day. And I laid her down for her nap today. And then I went to go make some homemade granola. I have like a really good recipe that I love. That's like organic and gluten-free and healthy because I'm trying to go be as healthy as I can. And it doesn't take long to make it all. And, pretty soon I hear her on the monitor crying. She took like a 20-minute nap and I'm just like, oh my gosh. So I go in, I let her, fuss a little bit because she was kind of yawning and closing her eyes. So I'm like, maybe she'll fall back asleep, but she didn't, so I go and get her. And then she went nap again. So I end up taking her for a drive because that's the only thing that would get her down for a good nap. And, I'm like, I got a podcast. I have some things to do. She needs to take a good nap. And so I'm going to take her for a drive, but it's definitely hard. I mean, like I said, she's so happy though. I can put her in her little DACA tot while I'm getting ready and she just laughs at me. And it's not, she's easy to entertain, which is very, very nice. But, sometimes she doesn't want to be put down or I need to be in her view. And then it is harder to get some things done. So, I mean, it's every day's different. And, some days it's like a victory that I brushed my teeth that day. And other days I'm like, hey, I got a workout in, I made dinner, I, cleaned, dusted and vacuumed, and I'm like, sweet, I can do this. This is so amazing.
It really is the contrast between not being able to get to anything and being able to get to one thing. Your listeners may hate me, but I did two things. When I had Ryan, I was 41 and I had to get my sleep. So I had read the book by Ferber, who talks about once your baby has doubled its birth weight and you've given them the last feed, that's it. So don't, if they are the proper weight, and you give them their last feed at night, when they wake up to cry, you do not get up to rub their back or feed them or sing to them or rock them, because they will just wake up for that again. If you feed them, their diaper is going to be wet and they'll wake up again. So I actually did that because I was exhausted. Mm-hmm. And I told my husband, we're going to try this. And for 3 nights, the first night, I think she cried for 5 minutes, and it was like 5 hours to not go to her. She was there in the room with me. And then I just, it took 3 nights and she didn't cry as much. And I had to do those things. And another thing that we did was we used some white noise, mm-hmm. because Jessie, that was for Jessie. We called her Jezebel Decibel, because she cried all the time. She wasn't calling, but she just wouldn't sleep. She wouldn't settle down. So I remember using that white noise tape, and she would immediately fall asleep. And then we'd run around going, oh my God, we can read the paper. We can make dinner. We can, have a walk. We can clean the house. It was just, it was sort of like, sometimes moms, you got to use some props as long as they're not hurting anybody. Mm-hmm. And of course, for you, what gets into trouble is when we moms start drinking too much coffee, or being on our computer too much, doing things that disrupt our own, melatonin, cortisol, stress hormones, so that we get to the point where by bedtime, instead of being tired and ready for sleep, we're wired and we can't sleep. And that just makes, things worse, along with babies' demands. So, there are many things in terms of, there's so many good things we can do, and there are a lot of things that we need not to do that we do because we need to push through our day somehow, and we're mm-hmm. exhausted. So that's when, sugar cravings and carbs and too much caffeinated stuff and maybe even over exercising to make up for the lack of it, all kind of throw us into more of an extreme sort of hormone imbalance. And that's when we find it's hard to lose that baby fat. It's hard to get into a mood where we feel serene and calm as we want to. Thank God we have the oxytocin hormone coursing through our bodies when we have that little baby on our breast. Mm-hmm. But, the rest of it, trying to cope, can be really tough hormonally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I actually just talked with a sleep coach, and I'm going to start tonight. We're starting some gentle sleep training because I am at that point, and I went back and forth. I read research on both sides, all sorts of stuff. And I told my husband, I'm like, I am exhausted, and I hate feeling this way. I hate feeling unmotivated. Yeah. I hate feeling because I'm in this cycle lately where I'm like, I don't want to work out. I don't want to, I've definitely had the sugar cravings, which is why I'm just making homemade stuff now to try to curb all that. Because mm-hmm. I was eating like crap for quite a while. And mm-hmm. I'm like, if I can get her on somewhat of a schedule, and I know when she's going to bed and that she's going to be sleeping for this amount of time, then right. I know that I can be on a schedule and I can get some stuff done. If she's waking up at this time every day, I can wake up an hour before her and sit and get back to just reading in the morning or journaling or just having some me time, doing some stretching or whatever it is, just to get my day going before she's up, and just to try to get some routine, because I feel like I'm just not fun sometimes right now,
Well, what you're describing are all the things that women need to do anyway, mm-hmm. to give ourselves a break. When I talked to a woman the other day also who has 4 children, she had quite the story. They were all born within 7 years, and 2 of them she got pregnant with when she was on birth control.
Oh man!
So we were having our interpretation of test results and talking hormones while she was sitting in the car with all of her children strapped into their car seats. That was the only place that, and, she was just, I don't know how with 4 kids you do get a moment to yourself, but she was desperate for that, for that moment to her, some time to herself. And I think that's really when it gets to, in the absence of the Irish midwife coming by, you've got to reach out and ask people to help you or, to have a day to yourself. And I remember feeling guilty about taking a day to myself or even a morning, that I should always be there. I should always be mommy. But I was beginning to feel actually resentful because I was too tired and I didn't have, I couldn't function, So I think that's when this is the time when you have to imagine your adrenal glands are just trying to keep up. They're trying to get you up in the morning and maintain your energy levels throughout the day. And the adrenals work by, providing cortisol, which is actually regulating your blood sugar, which is really energy for the brain, energy for the body. But that blood sugar has to come from nutrients. So if we're too busy to eat and we're grabbing, we're eating the crumbs on the cutting board after we've made the babies, or, scooping up a few mashed lentils and eating on the run, and then, eating sweet. Obviously, it's obvious everyone knows this, but the point is what starts to happen is you look at your cortisol levels on a hormone test and you're flatlined. They're supposed to be up in the morning. There's something called the cortisol awakening response where we're supposed to wake up with a higher level of cortisol, which is our get up and go, which is going to power us through the day, help us take stress in stride, all of that good stuff. But people who are exhausted and are not giving themselves the TLC that they need, adrenal support, can get to a point where, they absolutely have no energy, no libido. They're craving things. They're in a horrible mood. They don't, they feel almost unloving to the people they love most in the world. And then, then here come allergies and asthma and getting sick more often and not being able to bounce back, which is a really key thing during COVID, of course. So this is the time new moms need to give themselves extra super loving care. It can't be all about the baby. I have to say that. You remember when you're on a plane, you got to put the oxygen mask on yourself first, right? Before you can help anyone else. And this is all obvious stuff. It's kind of but somehow we all need that reminder to be a little bit selfish and look after ourselves, because we are, after all, we are the protectorate of the species. We have to protect us.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, some of it, but it's still hard getting there, or being like, okay, I'm going to do this for me. So like, what are a few things, let's say in postpartum, that you can just kind of do to help rebalance and kind of help get you back?
Well, I think first of all, this is not a time for following any sort of restrictive diet or intermittent fasting because you're desperate to lose that baby weight. This is a time, in fact, know that if you're still, hopefully you're breastfeeding. Are you still breastfeeding?
I am, yes.
Yeah, and most women I talk to are breastfeeding for a good 6 months to a year. So that's the time when, of course, you have to be careful with certain foods because some foods cause problems with the baby, right? But you do want to be, eating all the good stuff and not, just getting a lot of the good fats in your diet, getting the cruciferous vegetables, although that can be a problem with people that have gut issues. But the cruciferous, holding back your estrogen and monitoring and balancing hormones, all those, broccoli and Brussels sprouts, and never raw, but sauteed and steamed. You want to be using adaptogenic herbs like, rhodiola and ashwagandha and maca, some of these wonderful herbs called adaptogens, which I'll just kind of give a quick definition of because not everybody knows what adaptogens are. But the adaptogens are herbs, like I mentioned, ginseng, these reishi mushrooms. There's a million of them. Eleuthero, there's tons of these dong quai, of these herbs that have been studied in astronauts and Olympic athletes and people under intense or prolonged periods of stress, heightened stress. And of course, stress is good and bad. Having a baby is good stress. Taking care of that baby is good stress, but it's stress nevertheless. So the body, you've just come out of a birth, your body's stressed, it's rebuilding. You have to help it rebuild. And that's where, you want to be giving yourself the best nutrients, energy-dense grains, the rainbow of fruits and vegetables, not too much sugar and carbs that are inflammatory. All of those good things that Kelly LeVeque talks about, fiber, fat, the Fab Four, enough fiber in your diet, enough good fats in the form of avocado and eggs and olive oil and coconut oil. And I love coconut manna. When you need a little boost, a nice spoonful of coconut manna is wonderful. Getting off the caffeine, going to matcha teas and getting one of those. What's really fun is getting one of those milk foamers, make some nice foamed milk, almond milk or cashew, and pour it onto your matcha tea. Much better choice than caffeine, which is a whip to the adrenals. Mm-hmm. I think with new moms, the idea is give your adrenal glands tender, loving care. They're little tiny glands, pyramid shaped, sit on the top of the kidneys, and they have this immense job to do. They have to, as I was saying, regulate blood sugar and insulin. So they have a lot to do with how we gain weight, where we store fat. They regulate our energy levels. They regulate our sleep-wake cycle, stillness. And in women, as they get older, the adrenals actually pick up the slack in ovarian hormone production as the ovaries kind of pack their bags on the lead up to menopause. So they have this huge job to do. But, there's something called adrenal fatigue, and some people take issues with that. They say, that doesn't really exist. But, we could call it the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. It's all, all these glands working together. But in the end, if you're constantly burning the candle at both ends, aren't getting the right nutrients, are over-exercising, or have the attitude that you'll sleep when you die, are on your computer late at night, these are the things not to do. Because, people that need to be on the computer, get blue blockers and turn that thing off at least an hour before bed, because it's absolutely messing with melatonin, the sleep hormone, and then you're not going to get any sleep. If you're breastfeeding and you've got your cell phone in the other hand, and it's midnight, you're probably not going to sleep very well for the rest of the night. Your sleep's going to be fractured. Mm-hmm. Those are, obvious things not to do, but sometimes it takes some reminding. It's really important to eat foods that are hormone-free. A lot of people are not aware that many of our, and a lot of people are aware, believe me, but, factory farm meat, dairy, it's shot up with synthetic growth hormones. They're shot up to make those cattle grow fat faster. And who does that translate to but us? Mm-hmm. We get these hormones in our bloodstream. And we were talking earlier about cosmetics and moisturizers. All this stuff we put on our skin, personal care products, can also be loaded with hormones that are not actually listed as ingredients. I was mentioning the Cosmetic Safety Act hasn't been updated in 80 years. So there are like 1,400 different chemicals that aren't allowed in European cosmetics, but that are in our stuff, and they don't have to report it. So, it's not only a matter of eating the right foods, it's a matter of kind of ridding our kitchen shelves of things that have hormones in them. When you're looking for protein sources, it should say these animals were raised without artificial hormones. You got to pick up lift the carton of the egg carton, and see if it says our hens are happy hens, no artificial hormones. Same thing with cows. That's so hugely important. Otherwise, you're creating imbalances that are hard to recover from and are hard to rebalance. That can be done, though. Mm-hmm. So it's a combination of good, organic, grass-fed eating, using healthy products on your skin and in your cleaning that are natural, that don't have toxins. Thank God we have all these choices. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And avoiding extremes of exercise. Ladies, it's so important, especially when you have a new baby or you're still breastfeeding. Don't start spinning every single morning or thinking you got to do a 10-mile. Balance it out. You can do those. This is on those exercises that release tension that you hold in the body. Stretching, yoga, Pilates, swimming, walking, getting outside with that baby and having a good walk in the outdoors. Even if it's gray and rainy, you got to get out there some way, somehow. Mm-hmm. Do you have one of those prams where you have a cover for? In England, when I had my babies, everybody had the rain cover on their pram. And I live in Oregon, so it's kind of important. It's raining right now.
Yeah. Well, somebody else told me that it's really important to get outside every single day. And I usually do with my dog. I don't always bring the baby. Because like yesterday it was 27 degrees and just really nasty outside.
Oh. Okay.
But I still took my dog out because I don't mind. I like the cold. But like today it's 40 and it's sunny. I mean, there's snow on the ground. But I know I can take her out too. And just, I remember hearing somewhere that just fresh air is really good for babies too. Which I feel like has been really hard because of the pandemic and everything. Like all of these pandemic babies are, inside. And I know we haven't gone very many places. And also being a first-time mom, I find that it's just easier to do things on my own. Like I don't want to take her with me to the grocery store. I've never had to take a baby to a grocery store. It just seems overwhelming, and it's flu season and, just everything. So I'm like, I'd rather leave her with my mother-in-law and I'll go, because that's also then me time, because I enjoy grocery shopping and it's like time for me to just take my time, get some things and, not worry about it.
Get those hormone-free grass-fed meats and chicken, and get those good nutrient-dense grains and the chia and the quinoa, and load up on the avocado oil and the coconut, all those good things when you're shopping. There's so many great alternatives to, I love this cashew cream butter by Miyokios, and non-dairy yogurts. And there's so many great things out there now that we can fortify ourselves with. That's got to be the emphasis. And getting outdoors is much. I think there's a lot of outdoor deprivation because people are, with the pandemic, we felt like we have to stay inside. And then we were working indoors anyway and exercising indoors when gyms were still open. So everything was indoors. People weren't getting out enough anyway. You wouldn't believe the amount of vitamin D deficiency I see in people who live in places like Las Vegas, Nevada, or Arizona or California. People have, even Florida, the Sunshine State, they will be low in vitamin D. And man, that can have a lot to do with where your moods are, how much weight you're gaining and where. There's a huge study, the Framingham Heart Study showed that people that are deficient in D have 3 times the increased rate of abdominal obesity. So big, central obesity, belly fat, that sort of thing. That can be a vitamin D deficiency just because we don't get out in the sun enough, and the sun is what creates vitamin D. Vitamin D is actually a hormone. So I think that's, when you're still breastfeeding, you can't really use something like progesterone, but you can certainly take magnesium at night to help you sleep. You can certainly be using vitamin D to maintain so that you don't become deficient. The B vitamins are hugely important to help bring back ovulation. You want to start ovulating again and getting your period back, et cetera, once you're done breastfeeding. So, these are all really important things. And I should say, I think you're a doula, are you not? You were, do you know Aviva Romm? Do you know Aviva Romm, who wrote The Adrenal Thyroid Connection? No, she wrote The Adrenal Thyroid Revolution. She is an herbalist. She wrote a botanical encyclopedia of botanical medicine for women, and she's also a doula. She started out as a midwife. So she's got a great book on natural pregnancy, and afterwards she's got a great website too, avivarom.com. I would I would suggest that to all you moms out there, new moms like yourself, because she actually creates some adaptogenic tinctures. She's got 3 adaptogenic tinctures that because she's an herbalist, combined proper amounts of different adaptogens. And she's got one called Adrena Nourish, which is a great one for the morning to stoke your adrenal power and your energy. She's got another one called Adrena Uplift, which I love because when you get to that place where you're crashing in the day, you can't keep your eyes open. Adrena Uplift you can use as needed to wake you right up instead of coffee, and it's just a tonic of natural herbs. And then she's got Adrena Soothe, which is another particular combination that helps you sleep. So even though they don't taste very good because they're herbs, and you have to be careful when you're breastfeeding, see how that affects the baby. But it's a thought, it's some way to use something natural that can give you that energy that is so hard to come by when you're a new mom.
Yeah. When you were speaking, a few things came up. So when you're talking about, just for the listeners, getting the good meat sources and protein sources that don't have artificial hormones in it, and are grass fed, some of them might just say grass fed, but they're corn finished. And, there's a lot of meat out there that's organic. So just because it says like organic, is that good enough? Or what exactly do people need to look for?
Well, that's a good point that you bring up. I didn't actually know about corn finished. How do you know if that's...
because some of them say grass-fed, grass-finished on them, which means that they had grass the whole time, whereas some just say grass-fed, but they were corn-finished. I knew that from working in the restaurant industry because I worked at a steakhouse for a few years, and we got really good cuts of meats, and the place that I worked at had their own farms. But we studied how, cause in case people asked, how are the cows raised? What are their diets? And a lot of them were grass-fed but corn-finished because they'd fatten them up at the end to kill them, basically. So
yeah, I see. So I've just learned something that I didn't know about that I can pass on to the people I work with. I think it's pretty tricky who to trust. So basically, in my own life, I try to use. Actually, we have a guy down the road that raises farm, grass-fed beef. So I know the source and I know how they're raised. And it's sad to not see them in the field anymore, but I saw that they had a good life for the time. So it's that kind of thing. I think finding local sources and even in COVID times, I don't know about in Illinois, but we still have, although it's winter, but, outdoor markets, farmers markets are always a good place because you can talk to the people that are raising the animals and the food that is in front of you and ask, are you spraying this with anything? What do you feed your animals? You just have to. And then also maybe what I prefer going to sort of more mom and pop health food stores, grocery stores that are smaller and that you can talk to the owner and ask them about their products and where do they get them. We have one in this little town that I live in wine country, Oregon. We even have biodynamic wine here where everything is done according to the moon and the seasons and the cycles. And, so there's a lot of that discussion around, if you become one of these people that's much more interested. If you're a foodie, then you ask these questions. I think it's just ask questions because some of the labels are confusing. They're not, they're not absolutely dependable.
Yeah. Yeah. My other question is with vitamins. So you're talking about getting good B vitamins can help you start ovulating again. And that's something that helps rebalance hormones postpartum. But there's so many B vitamin supplements out there, and there's B6 and 12 and the multi. And then I know there's certain ones that maybe you absorb better than others. So for people listening that are like, oh, I should start taking B vitamins, does what kind of vitamin you're taking matter?
Yeah, it matters a lot. I would like to put in a plug for nutritional yeast. I'm trying to think, what is the name of it? Is it Dr. Bronner's? I can't remember the name exactly, but nutritional yeast and things like coconut aminos are very rich in vitamin B, wheat germ, and different grains, nutrient-dense grains. So for foods, dark leafy vegetables and those sorts of things you want to get. But it is hard to get enough B vitamins in your food because we're not all eating perfectly balanced diets. And stress really depletes the B vitamins. So stress of any kind, just a constant demand when you're a mom, you're always on, or you aren't sleeping enough, or, any alcohol, not that we're drinking when we're breastfeeding, but, alcohol depletes B vitamins. And constant, just eating too much sugar, carbs, all of these things deplete B vitamins. They're easily depleted when we're under intense stress. The adrenals need B vitamins. They're actually a cofactor in breaking down the glucose molecule for energy. So topping up with some supplements is probably a good idea. There are so many different kinds of B vitamins. I think it's best to, people have different opinions, but I don't think it's good to just do something like B12 for energy, because the B vitamins are a complex. They're B1 through B12. It's best to get them together in one supplement because they work together. They interact, all of them. So if you start just taking B12, you can create an imbalance of the others. You can get too much of one and not enough of the others. B5 and B6. B6 and B5 is often called pantothenic acid, are crucial to adrenal function and ovulation. So you want to get a good supplement. In the action plan that I send people, we're still going around on this, but good vitamin that is a capsule that has all the B's in it, that is liposomal, so it's easily absorbed. I have one listed as a liquid because some people don't like to swallow B vitamins. They make them sick. They can feel nauseated. So I have a liquid B vitamin that tastes pretty darn good. And I also have a choice of a B vitamin that is a topical cream that you can rub into your skin. I work with a Dr. C.W. Randolph. He's a very well-known gynecologist and compounding pharmacist. He's in Florida, and he has his own, he's really well-known in the world of hormone balancing. He's written several books, and he is retiring now and has created a line of topical creams, including plant-based hormones like progesterone and estrogen. He's also got vitamin D in a cream. He's also got B vitamins in a cream. So for people who hate to swallow things and can't, don't use smoothies, so they can't put a liquid B in their smoothie, that's a way to go, to use the topical creams. And in my world, I have a rebalancing plan that I send everybody, and I have links to order these things, not because I wanted to be promoting certain supplements, but because, like you just said, people don't know what to buy. They get so confused, and you go to Whole Foods or whatever your local health food store is, and it's overwhelming. So I think that, having a different form of vitamin B, the one that fits best with you, is a good idea. It should be the whole vitamin B complex. And, if you're exhausted and you can't sleep and you have cravings and you're getting sick easily, you probably also need some adaptogenic herbs as well. Mm-hmm. That's so important. The tinctures I mentioned, 4-sigmatic coffees, we have a discount on those. They are full of lovely adaptogenic herbs, and they're a great alternative to regular coffee. So we do have several choices there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I actually, for the 4-sigmatic herbs, I love their company, and I want to get them on the podcast too to talk about some of that, because I know that there's really good alternatives, and you hear moms run on coffee, right? Like when I said I didn't really drink coffee before, people were like, what? But I do drink decaf, which I would like to stop. But for me, it's more of like the ritual in the morning. Like, I start the coffee, I put my collagen in it, and I just, it's like, I love the taste of it.
I think that's perfectly fine. Enjoy your coffee. Just don't drink 5 or 6 cups of it.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I do decaf because caffeine affects me. Like I'll get jittery and then crash if I do caffeine. I don't feel good on caffeine coffee anyways. But I know so we've talked about how hormones can affect your, your mood, your libido, your skin, just kind of the typical things that you hear hormones can affect your energy, your motivation. But you've also said a couple times, if you're getting sick, I feel like a lot of people wouldn't link a hormone imbalance to sickness and even disease. So I'd love for you just to kind of touch on that real quick.
Well, I think one of the important things to understand is that hormones are protective. When we talk about hormones and hormone imbalance, we're thinking about, our symptoms, the hallmark symptoms, the heavy, painful periods, gaining weight you can't lose, having no memory, having no libido, having no energy, all that. And if you have those symptoms, be alerted to the fact that you might have an imbalance. But at the same time, hormones are absolutely essential. We can't live without them. I often say they rule our emotional, physical, mental life. So, we want to have good amounts of them, and we want to keep them balanced. They work in synchrony together, like the synchronized swimmers, all the toes up in pedal formation. If one of those swimmers swam off to the other side of the pool or dove to the bottom, that's when you start getting imbalances and symptoms. And, this is where protecting our hormones and making sure that, we're eating the foods that are the building blocks of hormones, which I've noted are protein and good fats. In fact, the backbone of all hormone production is actually cholesterol. That's why we call sex hormones, the estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, those are called sex hormones or steroid hormones, cholesterol. That's the backbone. So people that go on very low fat diets and are afraid of fats or fat phobic often have very low hormone levels. And that's when, suddenly we can't get the secretions we need to support the uterine lining thickening to support a baby. We can't, we don't have the energy we need. We're not in the mood. We start to, we have all these kinds of emotional, mental, physical problems. We can't think straight. We certainly are not in the mood for sex because we have no energy. So keeping hormones balanced, it's as much about knowing the signs and symptoms of an imbalance as it is about knowing that these hormones are intrinsic and amazingly important. We cannot, for instance, live without cortisol, the hormone that the adrenals make. The adrenals make adrenaline if we're running from a forest fire, but that doesn't happen every day. We're talking everyday demands on the body to be able to function and perform. We have to have adrenals that are promoting enough cortisol to keep us going. Otherwise, we're in a state of complete exhaustion and fatigue. And yes, we can absolutely get sick. And so we want to, and stay sick. A lot of people have said to me, I never got sick. And now I'm getting every other flu bug that comes along, or every time if someone coughs at me, I'm sick. And, that is just a number one warning sign of adrenal fatigue. And the fact that it's time to give yourself a little extra TLC, or a lot of TLC. I don't know if I answered the question just then.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. So part of the work that you do is you test people's hormones, and there's so many different tests out there. And I've heard, people say that they did a saliva test or a blood test or whatever. What is the best way to actually get a good hormone panel test done?
So when I started at the hormone testing lab that I worked at for so many years, we had a big uphill battle to convince people about the accuracy of saliva testing. Saliva was used in the world of scientists back when, saliva has been used to test DNA levels and all kinds of things. But it wasn't used for the masses to test hormone levels. And my mentor, Dr. David Zava, was the one that started doing studies that showed you could measure hormone levels in saliva that would be measuring actually active hormone levels, because hormones are carried in the bloodstream on red blood cells by carrier proteins. So they're all there. They're in the bloodstream, but they're not necessarily at work in the tissues of the body. They're bound to that red blood cell. And when there's a signal from the pituitary that says, hey, she's working out, we need a little testosterone release to give her some muscle strength, then a bit of testosterone becomes unbound. It leaves the bloodstream and it moves into tissue. And that's where with saliva testing, you can capture that hormone on its way to the cells where hormones do their thing. Hormones are like, think of a key and lock analogy. The hormone is the key. It unlocks the door to the receptor site of a cell. Think of the door, or think of a puzzle piece fitting into that puzzle. It binds to that receptor site, opens the door to the cell, and flips all these master switches. So we want to kind of know what are the hormones that we have available at the tissue level in the target tissues of the body. Do I have too much estrogen in my breast tissue? Should I know about that? Is that why my breasts are tender and sore? Is that a risk for breast cancer down the road in 10 years? Yes, it is. So I want to know what those levels are. Unfortunately, blood testing does not give you that active bioavailable level, and it does not reflect the use of hormones. So blood is not a great way to test how you're doing if you're actually supplementing with hormones. And also, blood tests have a disadvantage in that they use needles, and that actually skews the results of many tests because needles cause stress. So saliva, I'm in the saliva camp, obviously. Saliva happens to be the gold standard for measuring adrenal stress hormones, because you have to measure the adrenal function from morning through night. You actually have to collect your saliva 4 times over the course of one day, morning, noon, evening, bedtime, to get the diurnal curve of adrenal cortisol output to see, is it highest in the morning or is it low as can be and you're dragging out of bed? And then is it wonky all day and then high at night so that you can't sleep and you've got cravings, et cetera? That tells us a lot. The other testing that's very popular out there, and I'm good friends with Mark Newman, who started it. It's dried urine testing. It's called Dutch. And that's a very good way to test hormones too, but it's measuring different things. It's not looking at the level of hormone moving into the tissue. It's looking at the metabolites of hormones. Like what is the body, how is the body using these hormones and metabolizing them? Are they getting stored in the wrong places so that they're creating a burden on the body, or are they being metabolized properly and breaking down the avenues or the metabolic pathways that we want them to? So there are 3 main ways of testing: blood, saliva, urine. They all test different things. They all provide information, but I personally like saliva because it's non-invasive. It's convenient. I can send you a test kit. You can collect your saliva samples at the right time of the month and at the right time during the day. You can send that kit back in with your samples that stay stable at room temperature, and you send them back by mail. It's so easy. And then we get the test results back within 5 to 7 days and tell you that they're available. And then you can choose to book a consult with me or one of our health educators and talk through your test results, or you can just do the test result. Always get an action plan. So based on what your levels have shown us and identifying which imbalances show up, are you estrogen dominant? Is your testosterone low or is it high? What are your adrenals doing? Are your stress hormones following the right pattern? We can tell you all that and then provide an action plan. So that's pretty much how it works. And I think one of the first important things to do for your listeners is go to, if you're interested in all this and learning more and you have any of the symptoms we talked about, I actually have a symptom quiz on our website at yourhormonebalance.com. So go there as a first step and take that quiz, see how many symptoms of hormonal imbalance you have and whether you're likely to have an imbalance. And then getting tested to confirm some balances and finally find a way, a path to resurrecting. I always call it test, detect, and rebalance, because you're actually detecting hidden imbalances that have been causing symptoms you've probably been dealing with for years and you didn't even realize they were symptoms. I talk to so many people who say, oh, well, I'm always tired, or I've always had acne, I've always had horrible heavy periods, my mother did too. It's like, okay, but that doesn't mean that that's normal. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean you have to deal with that forever. No way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of my favorite sayings right now is common symptoms aren't normal. So even though it's a very common symptom that, a lot of people have, like I know so many people who have very heavy periods or, their breasts get really tender. It doesn't mean that it's normal. So that's, I love that. I need to retest my hormones.
Not usually.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So where can people, oh, sorry. Sorry. My computer's kind of like cutting out real quick. Hold on. Let me write this down.
No, I was going to recommend it.
Okay, go ahead. Oh, no. Hello?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my computer froze for a second. Okay. All right. So for people listening, I know you already said your hormonebalance.com. That's where the Instagram is.
Kind of.
Crap. It could be me too.
I just moved just in case it was me. I don't know.
So for everyone listening, I know you said yourhormonebalance.com. That's your Instagram. Where's the best way to connect with you, to find out where people, can take these tests at, to get hormone tested and all of that good stuff?
Well, I think the best first step is to go to our website, www.yourhormonebalance.com, take the symptom quiz. We're also at Your Hormone Balance Instagram. My daughters are doing an awesome job of putting out tons of fun information, and we have a newsletter too. So every day we post on Instagram all kinds of useful information, blogs, and the newsletter. So between those, you can order a test kit through the website. But you can, inform yourself and learn more and decide if you really want to go forward with this by, getting hooked up with the Instagram and reading more and getting excited about the difference that can be made in your hormones. And I would love to offer $100 off any one of our test kits using the code MAMAS 100, MAMAS plural, lots of mamas out there. Because that is our goal, to get people making the life-changing decisions that they need. And especially during this time when we're all sort of, isolated to a great degree, now's a good time to start contemplating your navel and thinking about your hormones and being more aware of your cycles and what's going on, and do you have symptoms of imbalance, and is there something you can do about it? Because now you have hopefully time to focus. Mm-hmm. Or when baby is asleep.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Candace, for coming on and for sharing with us. I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your knowledge and energy with us today. And I'm excited for the listeners to hear this episode.
I'm excited too. Thanks very much, Liz.
Make sure you guys check out her site and use code MAMAS100 if you guys want to work with her. That was so nice of her to give everybody a discount. I love the work that she's doing. Whenever I interview people like her, I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to do this. I want to, study that and do that with my life. I'm definitely one of those people that I feel like I need to have 5 different careers, but I really should just focus on the one that I'm doing. But yeah, I had such a great time talking with her. I'm super excited to start kind of balancing out my hormones again. You guys all know I had issues before, talked about it with Candace, and just I'd love to see where I'm at. I know that breastfeeding can affect all of that. So I'll probably wait a little bit longer still to kind of get tested to see where my estrogen levels are at. Because if you remember, they were at a high level of potentially cancer, which is no bueno. So I will keep you guys posted when I decide to do that. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. I'm excited for you to hear next week's episode. We are a month done with 2021. Oh my gosh. And into February, which is Black History Month. So we'll be doing a couple episodes on that and learning some Black history together. All right. Love you. Have a great week.
If you want to be the most interesting person at the cocktail party, well, hop on over and listen to the Brain Candy podcast.
Our award-winning content will have you laughing whilst you're learning.
We read all the best articles, books, and studies and keep up with new TV shows, documentaries, and pop culture. Then cram it all into 2 shows a week.
Conspiracy theories, cannibal rabbits, unsolved mysteries, the history of the Walkman. There's something for everyone.
The Brain Candy podcast. Find our link in the show notes.
Or simply search for the Brain Candy podcast on your podcast app.